So this is going to be the way that we set the foundation for identifying our financial behaviors, right? Understanding all of this, or understanding the foundational ideas we have related to money, will help us to identify the behavior that we exhibit now. Now, these are the four money scripts. And I did a Facebook Live about money scripts and how they operate in our lives. So there are four prominent money scripts. There's money avoidance, there is money worship, there's money status, which is what we were just talking about, and then there's money vigilant. Now, money avoidance says money's bad. Money is terrible. You see a lot of that in spiritual spaces. So a lot of it is money is the devil, the love of money is the root of all evil, there's a lot, and believe me, I work in spiritual spaces, and I have to counteract a lot of people's ideas that somehow wanting to have money is bad. And I've gotten a lot of social media inbox messages that says that I am a terrible person because I'm chasing money, and that don't I know that God is my provider, and that, I shouldn't have to, why am I trying to teach people about how to gain wealth? I've gotten quite a few. And these are all from church people. So FYI, these are not from non-church people. These are from people who supposed to have the love of the Lord. And I try to explain to them, and I go back into the inbox because that's who I am. And I am so nice about it. And I'm like, sis, because usually it's a woman, sis, we are all about God's work here. We are trying to push God's name forward. And in order to do that, we need to have a few bucks, because it's going to be difficult for me to do as much ministering as we need to do in order to take the word of God to the ends of the earth if I don't know how I'm going to eat tomorrow, or if I am not clear on whether or not my rent is going to be paid this month, or if I don't have health insurance. It's very difficult to look forward to things if you don't have the right now. And so that's how I try to explain it to people. Like, we're all trying to do good work. You know what I mean? I would rather my minister not have to have a job. I would rather him or her, or whoever it is, but my pastor is a male, by the way. I would rather him focus on doing that, because he does that so well. And so if I could give and donate to his ministry to make him doing that job a little bit easier, that's my mission right there. That is my mission right there. And so how does that happen? We need to be able to fund these things. And unfortunately, the way that this world that we live in works, you need money in order to do that. Unless we're saying we're going to rely on the government, right? And we are not supposed to. Should be separate from the world. So we shouldn't have to rely on the government to give us money to fund our projects. We should be able to fund our own projects. And how can we do that if we have no money? So this is how I kind of explain my mission, to teach all my brothers and sisters about financial self-sufficiency, about financial independence, and about wealth building, because we want wealth that moves forward and not wealth that ends with us, right? I want wealth, and I want for my children to have it and my grandchildren to have it. I do not want to have to, wonder and have it stop with me. All right. So money, but what we do, so whereas we do not want to deal with money avoidance because we don't want to ignore the ideology of money, we also don't want to fall into money worship, because that's the other end. This is why when we do our in-person meetings, and as a matter of fact, I have put down also in this course, there is a prayer that we pray when we first meet, because when 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, there he is in the midst. And so we want to make sure that we are always keeping our focus on the word. We keep our focus on God. We do not chase money. We know that money is a tool, and we need to use it in order to get our ultimate ideas taken care of. But money in and of itself is not the goal, right? We do not want to fall into a trap where we are just on that train and we're chasing that dollar and we have blinders on and everything else doesn't matter. We make sure that we take time for our families and our friends. And, we make sure that we dig into that word and we keep ourselves grounded so that we don't fall into the trap of worshiping money. Money status is what we were talking about before, where you believe that money and the things that they buy make you better than the next person, which is why, you know, there was I don't know if this was true or not. It was kind of true that because remember, I was born and raised in Harlem, and we would see a lot of people in Harlem that live in projects that had like not Rolls Royces at that point, but it was like very expensive cars, like Porsches, maybe not, yeah, like Porsches, very, very expensive cars. So they was paying, $150 in rent, but they was paying like a $900 car note because the idea is that people should see you in this expensive stuff. You had to have name brands. You had to. If you didn't, you needed to stay in the house. This is about status, money conferring a status to you that you wouldn't have otherwise. And that's not, well, I'm not going to say whether that's true or not, because for these people, it is very true. And then there's money vigilant. And money vigilance are people who they don't speak at all about money. They watch like a hawk of every dime. They do not spend. They are so hyper focused on money because this is the situation where you see a bag lady who dies and they were living on the street and yet they left like $4 million to, Sarah Lawrence College. And you're just like, wow, that's weird. That's odd. Like a person who live on the street, but this is it, there's something that happened there as well. And sort of like the twin that I was telling you about earlier, who decided that I'm never going back to living in lack. I am never going back to living in lack. So I'm going to be uber vigilant about how I spend every single cent. And I am going to put it all toward my security. And they just stack, stack, stack. Meanwhile, their day-to-day living is actually in lack because they refuse to spend on anything that would make that they consider like a luxury or that would make their life kind of more colorful. They are so hyper vigilant that they basically live a bare bones life, which is lack, while their money just stacks up for some eventuality that they haven't put their finger on, but that they're convinced is going to happen, sooner rather than later. All right. So that's the money scripts those are the four most common money scripts that we follow and that shape our lives. And they hold us back. I mean, they hold us back in all of these ways that we were talking about. Money vigilance can lead to miserliness, right? Because you're not spending it. And status can lead to overspending. So people, who we see in a whole lot of debt, a lot of that is due to money status. So these scripts, we talked about how they can hold us back and how they play out in our day-to-day lives. Now, money affects, and of course, again, money affects much more than our bank balances. It affects our emotions. It affects our sense of well-being. It affects our overall mood, and it affects our health. I mean, our emotions, we know that that's the case. I mean, imagine, if you will, somebody calls you and says, you know what, you just won $10 million, or you scratched off a ticket and you just won $10 million. Your emotions are all over the place. Now, imagine if somebody calls you and said, you know what, you just lost every single thing. The stock market crashed and you've lost every single penny you ever had. Now, for us, we're used to being broke. So it's not like we're going to jump out of a window. When you're already not poor, but you already used to being poor, then being poor again is not the worst thing that can happen. But when you are rich, so when you've gotten 10 million and you used to that $10 million life and then you lose it, now your whole world has come crashing down because now you've gotten used to a life that's no longer sustainable, and it rocks your emotions and your sense of who you are, your sense of well-being. Again, there are the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the ultimate need is air and water and food and shelter and money. It affects like half of those things. Air is free, we all breathe it, but food, we need food to survive, and if you don't have money, you don't have food. And so this is why it affects our sense of well-being, because we need those things to feel secure. Housing, we need a roof over our head, and so if we don't have money, it affects how we feel about our sense of security. Overall mood, of course. Health, Look at how difficult it is for people who are on the lower socioeconomic scale to deal with something like the coronavirus. I mean, poor people are dying from it be- generally because they have more underlying issues, and they have underlying issues because they don't get quality health care. So, it's just, it rolls like tumbleweed. It just rolls, and get bigger and bigger and bigger. You start off living in poverty or in lack, and you don't get quality health care. So now your health issues start to pile up. And then something like coronavirus comes, and it actually can kill you quicker than it can kill anybody else. I mean, it's not even just the fact that you have underlying health issues, but if you don't have money for healthcare, then how are you don't get those cocktails, like, with like the president and his cabinet, they get a special cocktail of, medicines, and if you're not there, you don't get that. So, having dollars affects our health. It affects our quality of healthcare. It affects the type of healthcare we can get. Even in jobs, there are levels. You can take there's the diamond plan, and then there's the gold plan. And so that with the diamond plan, you get a lot more. So it affects so many other things. This is why money is such a deep topic, and it's such a topic that we need to kind of dig into, because it's not something simple. Like if I was going to teach you, about a Mayan war, which is all facts. I can come in and I can teach you about the war, and that's that. With money, there are so many layers to it, and everybody has their own experience of it. And so no two experiences are ever the same, because it deals with your emotions. Now, here are a few of the emotions that we associate with money, right? Money is the root. We sometimes feel happiness. I know I do. We sometimes feel freedom. And the left side is more of the positive attributes. The right side is more of the negative attributes. So on the positive side, we feel happiness, freedom, respect, and love. Those are all of the positive emotions that we associate with money. Now, on the other side, there can be negative associations with money. There can be guilt. There can be fear. There can be shame, and there can be control. So if you're trying to control someone with money, then you are using money as a whip to try to keep them in line. And that's a negative association. Or if someone is trying to control you with money, if they're dangling money in front of you like a carrot, and they're saying, if you do this, I'll give you that. And if you know that you need that in order to survive, it's a difficult place to be in. Guilt, fear of, somebody taking it, or somebody, misusing you for it. That's what a lot of people who find wealth find it difficult to find love, because they're always afraid that the person who wants to be with them is with them because of their money and not really for them. So, you think that having money is, oh, if only I had a couple $1,000,000, my life would be the bomb, but not necessarily. I mean, I would love to have $10 million and do a thorough investigation, and I'll report back to y'all what I find, but that's what I've heard. All right. So if this is you, I want you to think about the way that you feel, and recognize when you have a need to sort of drown your feelings with things. We joke about needing to do a retail therapy when things are not going well in the job. We joke about, when we're not feeling up to par, we need to go buy ourselves some pretty shoes or whatever it is. But that is a real thing. I mean, if you've ever watched an episode of Hoarders, you know exactly what this is all about. When you feel like you are in a place where you're losing, where things are being taken, you don't have control. And so what you do is you go out and you buy all of this stuff that you don't need. So I need you to recognize that feeling. Recognize when you're buying out of a need other than need, when you're buying in order to assuage something in you. And then I want you to start to replace those feelings with positive action. Right now, allow yourself to feel the feeling. Listen, you have to feel what you feel. So you don't want to drown it out with stuff, right? If you are feeling loss, it's okay to feel that loss, right? Sometimes, I think I heard on an episode of Ayama, sometimes if your heart is breaking, sometimes you just have to let it break. because you trying to hold yourself together is causing more damage than if you just allowed your heart to break and then pick up the pieces. Because you stave it off, you hold it off, you hold it off, you hold it off, and you're doing all these other things to take your mind off of it, and you're putting up all these other things, and you're running a race trying to outrun these feelings, but they catch up to you sooner or later. You can't outrun it. They will catch up to you sooner or later. So it's better to just let it happen and then start to rebuild, and then start to replace whatever those negative thoughts are, whatever those negative feelings are, replace them with positive actions. And will it go away right away? No, but you will begin to feel better. You will begin, once you start strengthening those muscles that say that I don't have to stuff my feelings down with things. I don't have to stuff my feelings down with food. I don't have to stuff my feelings down with new shoes or with cologne or with dresses or with shampoo and conditioner or whatever your thing is. If you realize that you don't have to stuff it down with things and begin to feel it and begin to deal with it in a healthy, constructive way, the more you do it, the easier it becomes in order to do. Okay. So I think we beat that one. We beat that one to death. I think you got it. I think you got it.